Ford's $3 billion Michigan battery plant just transformed from a write-down risk to a powerhouse of $900 million a year in tax credits. But can affordable, safe LFP cells really spark a new era of budget-friendly EVs? Join me as we dive into how these policy shifts could reshape the auto industry. Watch the full video to uncover the future of electric vehicles and the race to affordability.
We're continuing on, Gary, as a follow-on. We're going to stay talking about domestic EV makers. You mentioned that bill, the big beautiful bill, wasn't completely hostile towards them, such as Ford. So tell us, Gary, and thing number 3, a new outlook for Ford EVs after President Trump's tax bill. What is Ford preparing for?
All right, so Rob, this is the other side of the exact same issue. Ford had a $3 billion battery plant for EVs located in Michigan, my home state where I grew up. And they faced the risk of losing a licensing deal with a Chinese tech company, CATL. And the reason for that is because the plant was under construction and there was a question over whether, based on the Chinese tech they were using, whether it was still an American manufacturer. And so the new bill clarified and allows federal production tax credits if U.S. entities can retain effective control over their products. Ford qualified under this particular new way of looking at it, and they're going to receive tax credits. Now, you could say, hey, wait a minute, weren't you just arguing against that? Yeah, I absolutely was. But to the extent that Ford wasn't able to produce in the United States, and we're talking here about a $3 billion manufacturing plant in a state that really needs to get its auto industry going again. It was a situation where, because they were using Chinese tech, they're saying you're not an American company. Ford does retain control of it. The whole thing is complicated, but this is what they're doing. Now, the factory is going to produce LFP batteries. That stands for lithium iron phosphate. Those are cheaper, safer alternatives designed for entry-level EVs. So what they're trying to do is allow U.S. manufacturers to start to make lower-cost EVs, and it will save 1,700 jobs. There is tax credit-driven support. I don't love that, but the truth is, I would much rather the U.S. government be giving tax credits for manufacturing than be giving money to the bureaucracy in Washington, D.C. Now, if someone wants to point out, hey, wait a minute, this doesn't all hold together. Yeah, the U.S. government is a big, complicated thing. Nobody's going to get everything they want, but I would prefer this to more bureaucracy in D.C. And if you want to point out that maybe none of the above is better, hey, that's a totally fair point too. Put it in the comments. I will read it. I'll respond. That's a completely valid point. But just remember, when you're running a government as big as ours, there are going to be some trade-offs, and this is the one that was made.
Yeah, Gary, with that being said, government-wise, are there any policy-related issues or could this create future issues for any of these U.S. manufacturers?
Yeah, I think there is. Here's the thing. This is a multi-billion-dollar plant. Thousands of jobs depend on it. And this was dependent on policy decisions that could have destroyed it during construction. These guys went from a potential shut it down, right down, to $900 million a year in tax offsets. That's Ford dodging a major bullet there. But remember something, a different administration might see these things differently. And projects that seem risky under one administration may gain life under another with a different compromise. So, this move reinforces Ford's LFP battery pivot as a serious attempt to scale affordable EVs. It protects margins, but this is the danger of running a government and economic policy like we are, right? You're trying to build multi-billion-dollar plants that you intend to use for decades. And the outcome here, whether you build it or don't build it, depends on whether you're in favor with a particular administration. And control in Washington changes hands every 2 to 4 to 6 years. It's a dangerous way to run an economic policy. In this sense, the Chinese model can be considered superior because they are picking winners, but they have one government. It's the same government. What I would prefer to see is exactly what we talked about in the prior thing. I would prefer to see a situation where our government didn't pick winners and losers. We didn't have special tax offsets or special payments to people or companies. But if our trading partners are subsidizing their industries, we use tariffs to level the playing field there. That allows our free market to operate well, but protects our domestic industries against foreign companies that want to put us out of business. That would be the direction I'd like to see them go. To a large extent, this administration, the Trump administration, has gone in that direction. This particular one, the option was to kill the plant or to rewrite the law to keep the plant alive. They kept it alive. So this is where we are.
Yeah, and in the written version of the five things, there's a chart that shows Ford monthly U.S. EV sales. Noted it was a policy win for Ford, but Americans aren't necessarily lining up for more Ford EVs. That chart shows a decent run up from Q1 23 to Q4 of 24, but 25 has just been an absolutely dismal year for EV sales for Ford specifically. Moving
Yeah,
to
think
thing,
about it, Rob.
or yeah, go ahead,
When
Gary.
they build these plants, they need these plants to be operational for decades.
Mhm.
So, they're trying to decide to build a plant or not build a plant and figure out if the policy, priorities of the next administration are going to favor them or not. That's a problem. That's really, I mean, if to the extent that people listening to this feel like I'm contradicting myself a bit or that I'm uncomfortable discussing this, it's because it's really complicated and not really a good way to do things. It would make more sense if we didn't do these kinds of subsidies, and just sort of try to let the free market take over on it. And that's why it's difficult to discuss.